One final mock draft on Mock Draft Monday right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. As predictive as we can make it, what do we think Howie Roseman's going to do on Thursday night to start off the 2024 NFL Draft?
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Eagles fans, to the Locked On Eagles podcast. I'm Louie DiBiase, one of your co-hosts, analyst also over at Bleacher Report. Same with my co-host Gino Camilleri, our scouting director. On today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, our final mock draft of the 2024 offseason. What do we think Howie Roseman's going to do in rounds 1 through 7? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 back, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. Happy draft week, everybody. We are here just a few days away from the 2024 NFL Draft. And Gino, on Mock Draft Monday, we've done about everything you can think of. As many predictive mocks, what we would do, what we think Howie's going to do. What if they trade up? What if they trade down? What if they go best player available? What if they only draft for need? If they stay put at 22, they go luxury. I mean, we've exhausted every scenario. So today it's just put our best foot forward to the test. What is Howie going to do as predictive as we can make it Thursday through Saturday?
First things first, if you haven't yet subscribed to the show, make sure you subscribe because we will literally be live the entire time
night
the draft is on. It is our favorite time of year. And secondly, thank everybody for riding along with us. We do these shows just as two guys talking into a microphone, but we do it to hopefully educate the viewer. And especially on Mock Draft Monday this year, we took a little bit of a different approach. We tried to change up the prospects as much as possible over the next couple of days. We'll put together our Eagles big board for you as well.
Still a lot of content coming before Thursday. We still got 4 more shows. Yeah,
you'll get this show Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. We'll be live Thursday night. You'll catch us Friday as well because this is the best time of year, Lou. And I mean, thank you to the fans for doing it because if not, it's just you and I going through these mock drafts, yelling at each other like we have every year and go back 6 years to the first time we ever did this, man. It feels surreal every time we get to the end, but
I agree.
It's the Super Bowl. We're here.
And I love the regular season when the Eagles actually play, but I feel like at least doing this podcast, this is our 6th year of having a live draft show together, and I don't know, it just feels way more interactive with the fans during the offseason, during draft season. This is my favorite time of year to do the pod, to go over all these, because I just love hypotheticals and scenarios and just all the speculation talk, and I just feel like it's been great to, our YouTube viewers, just all of our listeners reacting with us on Twitter. That's my favorite part of this, is just going back and forth with everybody. It's very interactive over the last few months, but I think also, Gino, I'm not getting draft fatigue. I'm getting a fatigue of when it comes to just lack of results. I need to now talk about which one of these guys is going to actually be an Eagle and then go from there. Like, what's the plan with this actual guy that's on our team?
You're studying for your finals. You don't have to go to class. The pro days are over, right? Nobody's actually out there.
How many more PSATs do I got to take?
Yeah.
I've taken them.
How many more mock drafts can you do? You're just ready to be in that room because, after that, you get to go home for summer vacation. Football's going to die down a little bit. But at the end of the day, this week is about changing the lives of hundreds of guys that have been dreaming for this day. Give them nothing but positive. Please don't be that guy that craps
unless it's Lietu Latu. Absolutely.
Of course, Lou had to throw something in there. But these guys are kids, man. They're anywhere from 18 to 24 years old, and this is their dream to get to the National Football League. Like it's our dream to talk on this microphone, like it's your dream to do whatever you're doing at home. Don't be that guy. Give them the congratulations. They deserve it, and they're in the 0.001% that ever gets to hear their name called come draft night. You can be upset, but internalize it. Don't be that guy that goes on to Twitter and starts tagging people.
Look, I will congratulate Jackson Powers Johnson, the individual. However, I will trash the position and the
I didn't say
itself.
Criticism was unwarranted. That is one thing we can always bring to
I'll start with that. If the Eagles take a guard on Thursday night, I'm going to say congrats to the kid, and then I'll have my freak out. Fair?
Yes, that's fair. That's fair, Lou. Right. I got to give we both have had our moments here, and hopefully
but they've always been positive. Well, there's been a couple negative reactions to the live show, but for the most part, Howie has normally done a pretty good job of making us happy Thursday, Friday, and Saturday throughout our time at Locked On Eagles. Let's do a mock draft here and see if we can put together a great mock, a great draft ourselves that we'd be very happy with from Howie Roseman's perspective. Again, this is going to be predictive. Gino and I, we're going to work together on each pick and try to make this as realistic as possible of what you can expect Thursday through Saturday. And of course, our viewers and listeners know that's going to be hard to do, obviously, because the draft is so unpredictable.
The more and more you look into it and you go through all the scenarios, my favorite exercise one of them, I love the draft, I'm a nerd, I get into all of them, but the quote unquote, when does the draft start? And for different people, that could come at a different pick. It could be number 2. Is it Jaden Daniels or is it Drake May? Could it be number 7 with Tennessee? Or could it be number 5 rather? Does the Chargers, do they go and take Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's available? Or do they take Joe Alt? If the Joe Alt pick happens at 5, what happens at 7 with Tennessee? So
right.
All scenarios could play out to a T, or it could just be all just kaput like they usually are come draft night.
All right, so Gino, I did pause the mock draft on the 12th overall pick because we know every single year, for the majority of the time that we've been Eagles fans, almost every time Howie Roseman has been the GM in the first round, for the most part, he makes a trade, and the majority of the time, he's trading up the board. We heard the report today from Adam Schefter as well and John Clark of NBC Philly that Howie Roseman, of course, to nobody's surprise, is working the phones. I'm sure he's trying to lay out, the groundwork for trades, Gino, just like a framework of it and not the actual meat and potatoes. But just in case certain scenarios play out, he can then make the call of that GM and say, hey, remember that deal? Because they're not going to negotiate they don't have time to, come up with all these new deals. So I think, that's just him doing his due diligence. But I also do think that Howie wants to be aggressive and not sit there at 22 because I don't think he's going to love the options. And I also think he's got a lot of draft picks this year. He's probably not going to want to trade down. So I paused it at 12 because I do think we're hearing the reports that it could be for a corner. I think he's going to trade up for a corner or an offensive tackle. My hunch is right now there's 2 players I just feel very confident that the Eagles like. It's Terrion Arnold from Alabama, the corner, and then Troy Fautanu from Washington. This might be a little rich to trade up at 12 with Denver for Fautanu, but I think for Arnold, that might make sense. And I don't know if you agree with me, but I have a feeling right now they like Arnold better than Toledo corner Quinyon Mitchell, who's, of course, my guy of Locked On Eagles.
I think you are steering this boat in the direction that it's most likely headed. And when you look at the Terrion Arnold versus the Troy Fautanu discussion, that's what I think it comes down to. I think it's got to be offensive line or it has to be this outlier type of cornerback. And
there's only 2, I think, that they're going to identify in that way, Gino.
And one's only 18 years old in Terrion Arnold, to where his second contract, he's going to be 22 years old by the time you extend him.
That's insane.
I mean, he's got the highest upside out of all of these guys, in my opinion, because Quinyon Mitchell, he's kind of filled out into his frame, filled out into his build. Like, you kind of know what he is going to be. Terrion Arnold, he's 18 years old. He hasn't even really matured into like a full-grown man at this point. And Howie Roseman has to be sitting there and say, if I am going up for a position, it is one, I know I can't get anybody else in a tier relative to this player. Is Quinyon Mitchell your cup of tea? Is he in tier 1? For me, he's right there with Terrion Arnold. With Fautanu, I think there's a cluster of those guys that you could kind of wait on, and it's like you pick your cup of tea to where you're not going to have to go up as far potentially to get one of these guys. But at the same time, what is the differentiating factor? If it's Troy Fautanu's ability to play all 5 positions, well, I think there's a lot of guys that you can make the argument that could play multiple positions. And Graham Barton, if you wanted to wait on him, and J.C. Latham, where is he ultimately going to hang up and play? For me, Terrion Arnold is worth it. You give up multiple picks. You be willing to give up a 2 and then some, in my opinion.
To get up to 12, yeah, it's going to take Gino. And I have a hunch they're not going to pick at 50 and 53. I think to move up 10 spots up the board, they'll be willing to give up 53.
They're going to want to stick with one of them, in my opinion.
Yes, and they'll probably want to keep 50.
I saw a trade of one of your first rounder in 22, 53, and 120. To get up 10 spots, to secure Terrion Arnold?
To get up to 12, and then
would you do it,
maybe
Lou?
they give up. Would they give up 76? I would do it. Would they give up 76 as well?
Denver, you're saying? Potentially?
Yeah, so it's a 1, a 2, and a 4 for a 1 and a 3, or maybe just the first and then a later pick.
I think Denver is just going to want as many selections as possible. That's a
they don't have many.
Dead franchise at this current point in time, Lou. Like, they need as much help as possible. I don't think they'd be willing to depart. On the safe side, just so we get our guy, I think Howie would be willing to do that. Because if you look at what he gave up for Jordan Davis in the multiple picks, it kind of averaged out to that second/third territory with how much they gave up to go and get him. And for Terrion Arnold, I think the discussion, it's you put it to bed. You have a cornerback number 1 after Darius Slay is gone, and you just got him for what you probably would have to give up in a trade to go and get potentially Patrick Surtain. And it looks like Denver doesn't even want to go and take our trade right now. So yeah, I did include a later pick. Let's try just 22, 53, and 120 straight up for 12. Yeah, and let's see if so they accepted that one. All right, I'll take that. Okay. The Eagles are on the board at 12. And I think Terrion Arnold's worth it. Gino, as you mentioned, the age that's such a huge advantage. And Keely Ringo is extremely young too. Like, you can have these guys for such a long time. And I like Mitchell better than Arnold, but there's very few things you can nitpick from his tape. Like, he is an incredible tackler, which I think they're going to really like. I think he's got the play speed to hang with any receiver, can play press, can play zone, has good ball skills. I mean, just the character too. He's going to be a leader for a long time. Hearing that combine speech was great. I think they're going to really like Terrion Arnold, and Howie lately, like, he wants to go young on his roster. He wants guys to be here for a long time. So I think this just makes too much sense to be the pick. Honest NFL, who does arguably the best job of breaking down the Philadelphia Eagles, he has studied FanDuel forever, did a write-up on literally 2 cornerback prospects, one being Terrion Arnold and Cooper DeJean. I just want to read this last part on Terrion Arnold. Arnold is the type of corner you can just set to right cornerback or left cornerback and have a solid starter from day one with the potential to grow into an all-pro. His ability to maintain excellent depth and leverage and coverage without forfeiting physicality is something FanDuel values highly at that position. Arnold would likely require a trade up into the top 15, though, and I don't see that coming to fruition. Well, guess what, folks? GMGC and GMLD just pulled off that trade. They got Terrion Arnold. We've had that discussion of trading for guys like Pat Surtain to kind of fill in the void there. You just got your guy, Lou. Like, we don't have to have this discussion of taking another cornerback high after you just got Terrion Arnold.
So we got up to 12 to the Denver Broncos pick to get Terrion Arnold, the Alabama corner, giving up the 53rd pick in the second round and then 120 in round 4. We've got the 50th overall pick, though, still on day 2. Coming up next, it's Mock Draft Monday right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
As we continue on, this episode of LOE is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. The New York Knicks really got some gall, folks. That's all I got to say. Go Sixers, go. If there's one place that you want to bet the Sixers money line to absolutely demolish that team that has no brains up north in the New York Knicks, go to FanDuel. And right now, win or lose, you are going to get $150 guaranteed. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks to a Knicks fan running into a pole after they lose this game, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. I don't even like basketball, but I just hate the Knicks. Go Sixers, go. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Go bet the Sixers money line.
Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard's not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties, and you can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store, also available on Google Play. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, the Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local experts of Locked On, including Gino and I, are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from our local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft available now. Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. One final mock draft from Locked On Eagles today, and we're going to be as predictive as possible. So in the first round, Gino and I, we did hear the reports, and we've seen the track record of Howie Roseman and the positions that he probably is going to target. So we decided to trade up from the 22nd overall pick to 12. And in any of our mock drafts, we've never gotten that high, Gino. We've gotten, I think, up to 15 or 16 is the highest. We gave up the 22nd pick, the 53rd overall pick in the second round, and then our 120th pick in round 4 to get to 12 to take Terrion Arnold, the cornerback from Alabama, 18-year-old kid, high floor player, high ceiling player. The Eagles finally get a corner in the first round for the first time in Howie Roseman's tenure. We're back on the clock here at 50. Not a lot of picks left in this draft. We got to make it count. I'm thinking now, if this is what happens, Gino, like, he's going to want to add offensive line depth for sure.
I would think that he would want to go and potentially trade down here if there was the case to potentially recoup some picks. But if he was going to stand there, if you had to guess any 1-2 and any combination, cornerback, offensive line just makes way too much sense for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And the reports coming out, I don't think they're reports. It's just like study the Philadelphia Eagles and follow what they've done the last 13 years and understand that this is what they do. And I'd love to hear reports that Howie Roseman is talking to those teams ahead of him to trade. It's like, report that Howie Roseman is breathing. Like, report to me when he owns like a saber.
Like, did you not see him like salivating last week saying, "I like trades"? Of course he's calling.
Yeah, like the incoherent rumblings of a madman. He's just at the mic saying, "I like trades. I like trades." Like the "I like turtle" kid back in the day. And he's saying, I bet you he's in that line in that room right now with Stout saying, "I like offensive linemen. I like offensive linemen."
Exactly. And so, yeah, I think a trade down could happen. I think just for the sake of time with this simulation, it's going to be hard to identify a team to, trade with right here. So we'll make the pick at 50. I think it would be a tackle prospect. I like some of the interior players available, Gino, like Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. I think he's a little underrated here. Christian Haynes from UConn. Patrick Paul, of course, a popular pick, the Houston tackle. I think they would like Roger Rosengarten as well a lot. I've mentioned his name a few times on the podcast just because of the athleticism there, and I think he would translate more as a versatile inside-out player. I think it'd be Rosengarten, but I think there's some good options here at tackle.
Kareem Amejidi. Yeah, he is another player that'll probably...
I hope they don't take him just for the name, man.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, just so we don't have to pronounce it. And Dominican Sue that you had to pronounce all those times. But actually, Roger Rosengarten went in the first round in Mel Kiper's latest mock draft.
I saw that,
surprising. And if you like Troy Fautanu, why don't you like an off-brand Troy Fautanu and Roger Rosengarten?
It's not a coincidence they were both on the same offensive line, Gino.
No, and it was a very good offensive line in Washington. It wasn't just Tylese Fuaga at Oregon State, where he was the guy and it wasn't everything else. Like, Washington went to the national championship game for a reason. And I think Rosengarten is right in that conversation with a guy like Patrick Paul. I think Rosengarten definitely gives you more versatility. Paul is just going to probably play on an island. Blake Fisher, I think that's a little rich for my blood. I love Christian Haynes. He doesn't offer any tackle ability, though, so you're probably not just going to draft an interior guy. Roger Rosengarten, man, like, I hate that I've taken countless Washington Huskies on this show. But Jeff Stoutland, man, like, he likes how they're taught. Like, if he liked Troy Fautanu, why wouldn't he like the same guy in the same room? Can do a lot of the same things. Not as well. He's not as well balanced and not as strong as a guy like Troy Fautanu. But heck, man, if you're only making these limited amount of selections, these premium picks have to be on premium positions. And at the same time, folks, we said this the other day, the 2018 draft class, the one where they had 5 selections, has been the one that has reaped the most rewards in this second coming of Howie Roseman.
And Gino, normally you want a lot of draft picks. Obviously, Howie himself has been very self-aware. I remember a press conference a few years ago where he said, obviously, I know I'm going to miss as much as anybody, and so I just want more swings of the bat, talking about why he wants as many draft picks as possible. And for since the Carson Wentz trade, he's been very good at making sure he has a deep chest so he can not only be aggressive and trading some of those picks for proven players or trading up in the board, but he's also tried to trade down to maintain that, flexibility and optionality. But I will say, I think he can take a year where he can do this and be aggressive to get a blue chip prospect like Terrion Arnold, because he's had years of so many draft picks. He's been able to add a lot of young talent on both sides of the ball here that he's now paying. And in the next future, drafts, the next couple of drafts, he's still going to have a lot of picks. So I think this isn't that unrealistic where he might say, hey, I can have 6 to 7 picks this year and be okay without having the 9 to 10 I'm kind of used to the last 3 to 4 years.
If we wanted to do a 3-hour show on the Howie
I was going to say, and we could have traded down.
Of trading down to get more picks, and then with all of these day 3 picks, he probably is going to package.
In this scenario, he probably moves down from one of these picks. Yeah.
He's not somebody that shies away from trading future selections either, so I would expect if Howie Roseman does trade up and gets his guy, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
He will find a way to recuperate some of those picks. Is it going to be all of them? Is it going to be the 50th selection you traded away and or 120? No, but he wants swings of the bat, Lou. At the same time, if you address those players and you identify them and you can get 2 round 1 guys, hopefully that's what happens with that 12th pick, and then you slip down to 50 and one of those guys fall. Here in day 3, we just make a boatload of selections, and this is how you build the back end of your roster.
So Houston just offered us a 3-pick trade for 161. They offered 188, 189, and 247. Do we want to do that?
This wouldn't be realistic if we didn't trade down. We got to do 1 up, 1 down. Let's take it. Let's get some more picks. Let's give the people what they want.
So now, and again, I think, Gino, in this scenario, I think the trade, though, to 12 was realistic, right? I think
100%.
You're going to have to give away. And, not to spoil something, but for our Locked On NFL mock draft, me and you did not want to move off one of those second-round picks to trade up for a corner, so we did stay put in that scenario. But I think to get up 10 spots, you're going to have to give up one of those 2s, and then to give up a 4 is realistic. I just think, as we mentioned, in that scenario, you'll probably trade off 50 to get a little lower, get back into that 3rd or 4th round.
Mm-hmm. And in the Locked On NFL mock, we didn't trade up because Terrion Arnold was not on the board, and that will get into our team building philosophy when we do our big board episode. But here we are now on day 3. We have a lot of selections here.
Yeah, we got picks now. We got 6 picks. All right, so we've done corner, we've done offensive tackle. I'm kind of curious what kind of weapons are available for sure.
Wide receiver is going to be super deep. This is where you might target one of those guys right away that you're sitting there and saying, oh, this is too good to be true. Could you get another tight end? We've made a lot of these selections as well. You're going to be looking back-end safety depth, probably back-end linebacker depth, maybe another offensive lineman or so.
I like Morris Lufau, though. The Notre Dame linebacker is a rocket. Reminds me a lot of Frankie Louvu, actually, from the Carolina Panthers now with Washington. Just someone that you just comes down flying. I mean, still has coverage ability too. He's a little more raw in that sense, but for a day 3 pick, kind of maybe like a poor man's version of what you're looking for with Devin White. I like that pick, but I think there's some good weapons too.
We haven't picked Luafu yet. Wow. Omar Spates is somebody who has been flying up boards, and he's a CGS guy. I wouldn't be shocked to see his name picked on that last day. We've made the Tommy Eichenberg selection. We haven't picked a Notre Dame. I don't think we've picked JT Bertrand either. So let's go with Leoff out there with that first selection. I like that. And then you're sitting there. It's like, all right, let's get our weapon.
I was going to say, so we're at 172. My boy Jaquan Jackson's always there. The wide receiver from Tulane, Eric All. We've mentioned a lot the tight end from Iowa. I think, and I heard Daniel Jeremiah say this, that he would be shocked if the Eagles don't come away with a running back on day 3. Could also look into that section as well. But I think for what this board is, I like receiver and tight end better than running back.
Ryan Flournoy, the wide receiver out of Southeast Missouri State. If you like Malachi Corley, like that's your boy, right?
Yep.
A very knockoff version of him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he's one of those small schoolers. Howie Roseman loves
He's got some wheels.
He could scoot, man. He could get after it. Cornelius Johnson, I'm not the biggest fan of him either, am I, of Jordan Whittington. I mean, once you're getting into the third and fourth pass catchers at these schools, it's like how much can they present you upside-wise? But Flournoy was the guy at Southeast Missouri State. So let's take a FCS guy here. Let's do it.
I like it, and he does make sense for what the Eagles normally look for on day 3. Gino, they want athletes, and that one year they kicked the tires on both John Hightower and Quez Watkins. And again, Quez Watkins didn't work out for what you were hoping for, but for a late day 3 pick, like they got a good amount out of him. So I like that pick. He's definitely somebody that's got wheels. I like the poor man's Malachi Corley comparison because he's a player that I'm later in the draft process kind of falling in love with.
I hate the comparison thing, and I literally just did that. But here we are back to back again. I start to get into where is the safety board right now, because for me, somebody who loves this position, this is where the bulk of the riches could kind of tend to be. And Kenny Logan Jr. out of Kansas State, Patrick McMorris is on the board, Sione Vaki, we've made the selection, Trey Taylor, Jalen Carlott, we've picked all of these guys, man. Jay Stanley, Mark Perry. All right, let's make the Mark Perry selection because he's somebody who's seen as could be a corner, could be a safety, presents that versatility for you. That's where the Eagles will be looking. They like these type of guys. Oh, Mo Kamara is still on the board, but I don't think he's.
I was going to say, we have another pick here. We're at 189, Gino, and they would definitely take a defensive lineman in this scenario with one of these picks.
Logan Lee, the defensive tackle out of Iowa. You want somebody that's going to kind of be a run stuffer for you. That's exactly what he's going to be, kind of Juwan Briggs as well.
I like Muhammad Kamara, and people kind of compare him a little bit to Brandon Graham, not like physically, but just his motor and overall style. I think he's somebody the Eagles would really like.
He's undersized for sure. I mean, the BG comparison makes a lot of sense because how he's going to win, it's going to have to be with that second, third gear to try and get to the quarterback. And he's somebody who's a little bit older. I think he will be 24 come the day the season starts. But the Eagles, we've said this on the show before, they sent Jeremiah Washburn out there to go work him out. They've also sent a guy during their pro day to go check him out. And somebody who's been at some bowls. So I could absolutely see him being the pick.
All right, Gino, we're going to take another break here. We've got 2 more picks to round out our final mock draft Monday right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. A lot of picks on day 3 as we did make that big trade up for Terrion Arnold, the Alabama cornerback, on day 1. We'll wrap up this mock draft. Coming up next, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Game Time, which is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can save up to 60% buying last minute for sports, concerts. We've been big into comedy lately, going to live shows across New York. Theater, you want a theater night? Head over to Game Time. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Again, all in pricing, and you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know you're getting a great view on top of the great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we're wrapping up our final mock draft Monday of the 2024 offseason, and Gino, we're making this one as predictive as possible. Let's kind of recap what we've done a little bit here. So we traded up from 22 to 12. Arnold, the corner from Alabama, giving up 22, 53, and 120. Did still have that other second-round pick. Took Roger Rosengarten, the tackle from Washington. And then we had a bunch of picks on day 3 after we traded down with Houston. We traded 161 for 188, 189, and then 247. Took Morris Lufau from Notre Dame, the linebacker. Ryan Flournoy, the Missouri State receiver. You took Mark Perry, the safety from TCU. And then a late day 3 BG type, Muhammad Kamara, the edge rusher from Colorado State. So we've got 2 more picks here at 210 and then 247. We haven't taken a tight end or a running back. Maybe that's kind of the focus now, Gino, I'd imagine. I think they're going to take a running back later on in this draft.
With what they did at tight end in the offseason and compared to what they did at running back, I would assume that they'll probably go with the running back.
Gainwell's a free agent after this year, correct?
Mm-hmm. He is a free agent after this year, and Boston Scott hasn't been signed back, so you only technically really have 2 guys on the roster right now.
Yeah. I'm looking at the board right now. I like Jawar Jordan from Louisville. Him and Isaac Guerendo kind of shared that backfield. George Halani from Boise State still available here. Amani Bailey.
Senior Bowl freak Amani Bailey.
Yeah.
Former
Kendall Milton from Georgia is a little underrated. Like, talk about a guy that can fly. Milton later on in the draft makes some sense as like a new Boston Scott or Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, that would probably be the type because like Dylan Johnson's a bigger type of back, right? And I mean, same with the Rasheen Ali, like he's going to get you those 30 yards that you want. Same with the Kamani Vidal, a little bit slower footed, but yeah, that's a good selection, Lou. It's somebody who's going to have fast feet and can kind of take that Kenny Gainwell element and hopefully transfer out of that Kenny Gainwell role once he's gone.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You need some depth. I would hate if they went running back in the top 4 rounds. Like once you commit that much money to Saquon Barkley, Gino, and he's going to get such a huge workload that you don't take one that early, but I think they're going to want that depth for sure. And I think Milton's a guy that's underrated, and he kind of turned some heads at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't really on my radar until I got down to Mobile, so I like that pick later on. So overall, I think this has been a pretty good balance of offense and defense, and the Eagles are very good. I mean, if there's a team to have day 3 picks, it's Philly. Like, it's tough now in the NIL era, but I mean, they normally have a lot of success getting a couple productive players from day 3 and undrafted kids each year.
There's also one more edge on this list that I don't know if he made it to us, but if he is there,
we can check. Who are you looking for?
Gabe Murphy, the edge rusher. Oh, he was selected literally. But Gabe Murphy,
literally the pick before.
If you look at all of his advanced pressure statistics, he is towards the top of a lot of them. And he is somebody who has not been talked about, obviously, because when you get into these situations and when there's multiple guys at these schools, lots who's going to get talked about more. There was a tight end I saw on this list, and Isaac Rex, who has kind of gotten lost in the shuffle because he's one of these BYU guys. He's a little bit older in the process. But at the same time, you watch what he does on tape at BYU. These BYU tight ends, they are built just like a Dallas Goedert. Let's say they add one. I don't think they're going to go into camp without adding another one, Lou. If they don't add one late into the draft, they'll probably sign one of the higher undrafted free agents, one of the PFAs. Let's make that pick in Isaac Rex.
All right, so overall, I think this is a pretty good mock draft, Gino, for predictability. I think trading up for a corner or tackle is very likely. I think taking the other position then on day 2 is pretty likely. The only thing I would say, again, we had a lot of picks on day 3, 171, 172, 188, 189, 210, and 247. I imagine they do try to trade down and get a 3rd or 4th back if they end up being aggressive and trading up on day 1. But still a ton of draft picks, and I think I'd be pretty happy with this class. Just those top 2 picks would be good enough for me.
They're going to prioritize priority positions. That's a tongue twister. But they're going to go for the positions that they know can protect their quarterback, can affect the passing game. That comes down to offensive line. It comes down to cornerback. Everything we've been hearing, trying to put the pieces together, the puzzle together, one step closer at a time. But at the end of the day, Lou, as much as we think we know, when it comes to the NFL draft, we absolutely know nothing. And come Thursday night, this thing can be flipped on its head when Cleveland Farrell is selected 4th overall like he was a couple of years ago by the Raiders.
It's a perfect analogy.
Flip this whole thing on its head, man.
Cleveland Farrell is the face of unpredictability for the NFL draft, and it's going to be crazy. We've got 3 more shows for you, though, before the draft does kick off right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. We appreciate you being our first listen each and every day. Until tomorrow, though, we're going to sign off for one final Mock Draft Monday. Again, thanks everybody for tuning into all these mocks. We've had so much fun with it. We'll see you next year on Mock Draft Monday. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.